Rain tonight, snowflakes possible in the morning.
Car versus building, a warning for all drivers.
And cash for cuddles. Not everyone gets hugs for free.
Cash for cuddles. WFMY News 2 to 11 starts now.
No matter what you do, any type of distracted driving is going to affect not only you, but somebody else.
I don't want my kids to be data points in a study that comes out 15 years from now.
Heard somebody say one time that the three best coaches at that time were John Wooden, Bob Knight, and Dean Smith.
Always kind of depended on him and thought about what would Coach Smith do in this situation, and that's kind of how I've tried to live my life.
It's very important for everyone to really feel like they're not alone in this world.
Well, if you didn't get out and enjoy the weather yesterday, sorry, you're out of luck. It's back to reality now, and that reality is February.
Oh, Grant, we have to sigh. So rain tonight and possibly what? Snowflakes?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that chance, guys, is pretty slim, but we have to put it out there because if there is a snowflake, you know, we've called for it. It could be there, but we have fog and rain out there right now. Visibility is reduced down to 1.5 miles in Greensboro, a little bit better out towards Winston-Salem at 4 miles visibility, but widespread showers across the air, fairly light in nature, up towards Stokes County, finding a more moderate shower, but it is all rain. Really not expecting anything but as we head into the overnight. But watch here with the high-resolution futurecast. We're going to be ushering in some colder air, specifically in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which is where snow could form. The only issue is, if you notice the freezing line, still north into the mountains. So temperatures at the surface will stay above freezing, but a couple of those snowflakes forming up in the atmosphere could be falling down to the ground. Likely most of them melting, but areas north could see a snowflake. Otherwise, we begin to clear out as we go into the afternoon, but much, much colder air on the way. We'll have that full forecast coming up, guys.
Well, take a close look at these photos while we tell you a few of the facts. Every year, drivers crash 20,000 vehicles into buildings nationwide.
And that's 50 to 60 each and every day. 41% of those wrecks are caused by driver confusion or pedal error.
Okay, now stop. How much of those pictures do you remember? What kind of car was it? Did you see the pictures of the ladders? How many ladders were there?
So when you split your attention, it's hard to catch everything. In this case, a car ran into the front of a FedEx store. It's still too early to say for sure if it was distracted driving, but WFMY News 2's Tony Smith discovered distractions are #1 on investigators' list, and it's a top problem for every driver. Tony.
Here where this wreck happened, they have boarded things up, but police say when you have an accident or a wreck like this one, it is very hard to convince them that the driver was not distracted. And even though the driver was in his 70s, police say it could happen to anyone, any age.
What were they doing that caused them not to see the car moving in a forward direction?
Greensboro police say a man in his 70s accidentally drove his car into this FedEx store on Wendover Avenue.
When you're driving, you need to concentrate on driving, period. That's it.
An investigator says the driver put the car in drive instead of reverse. An innocent customer inside got hurt.
I guess I would hope the person is okay.
The victim and driver are expected to be okay, but officers say distracted driving doesn't stop at just texting, putting on makeup, or eating.
No matter what you do, any type of distracted driving is going to affect not only you, but somebody else.
Laura Thompson didn't see the accident, but she says she can't see how the driver was not distracted somehow.
Slow down and pay attention to what you're doing because you're going to affect other people's lives.
The numbers are staggering. Across the country, there are 20,000 vehicle into building crashes every year. Police believe there is one solution.
You're aware of your surroundings and you're aware of what you're doing inside that car, which you must be when you're driving, then accidents like this probably would not happen.
Again, police believe this could have happened to anyone who gets behind the wheel and that person is distracted. As for the investigation, police are still looking into what exactly happened here on Wendover Avenue in Greensboro.
Thank you, Tony. A FedEx spokesperson says the store could reopen tomorrow, but it's only after inspectors deem it safe.
A man in Reedsville has been charged. 23-year-old Jimmy Lee Strader reportedly hit speeds above 100 miles an hour. Investigators say Strader hit the patrol car to run it off the road. The deputy was not hurt. A mechanic in Randolph County has been charged with stealing cars instead of fixing them. The sheriff's office says Daniel Trotter sold cars to scrap yards instead of working on them. He didn't have proof of ownership or the owner's permission, but investigators say he kept the cash.
Off limits would be right here and lower down.
It's a total non-sexual experience.
Cuddles for cash, comforting or creepy. Don't miss it.
More information tonight about the toxic waste sitting under 2 schools in Winston-Salem, Haynes and Lawrence Middle Schools. Parents at those schools learned when they'll know if the air is safe. WFMY News 2's Emily Spain learned one mom called in her own experts.
Yeah, this is how the experts explained the problem. The toxins from the contaminated groundwater can evaporate and travel up through the soil. Then, through cracks or concrete, they can seep into the building. So 3 things you got to test. 1, you got to test the soil. 2, the air inside. And then you also got to test that air outside. So, and in the meantime, while they're doing those tests, parents want to know what's happening with their kids.
When it comes to the kids, I'd rather be safe than risk being sorry.
The toxic tale continues for Haynes and Lawrence Middle Schools in Winston-Salem, which sit on top of contaminated groundwater.
And I don't want my kids to be data points in a study that comes out 15 years from now.
The latest chapter, environmental experts came in from California and Kentucky.
But the data we have thus far suggests that we need to address the problem, but we don't need to panic.
This scientist says he would not pull his kids out of school, but he would still push for more tests.
I wouldn't have a problem them being in the school for another month or 2 while we try to figure out what's going on.
The school district hired a company out of Raleigh that's starting tests this weekend, but the board still has to decide if and when they would move students somewhere else.
Hopefully that will help them make the right decision and move the 2 schools off a toxic spill site.
But based on what I know, I would wait to make the decision, and then I would act aggressively.
Now, the school board has several options. They could move the students immediately, wait till next year, or they could build brand new schools completely. And the earliest we will see conclusive results, Frank, will be about 2 weeks, and it could cost taxpayers up to $84,000.
And there's a Facebook page parents have started that claims they've collected 800 signatures demanding the district move the students from Haynes and Lawrence immediately.
Carolina Panthers defensive end Greg Hardy will not face domestic violence charges. Prosecutors dropped the charges against the soon-to-be free agent because they could not track down his accuser today. The district attorney said Hardy reached a civil suit agreement with the woman.
From the basketball court to UNC's campus, to his church and schools, living rooms and hearts across the state, Coach Dean Smith will not be forgotten.
This is how his church remembers him. Flowers in his seat. He attended service on the Sunday 6 days before his death. Outside the Dean Dome, notes, flowers, and memories from fans and students. And across the state, flags at half-staff to honor the UNC basketball legend.
Coach Dean Smith died Saturday night at age 83 after years, really, of failing health. While in life his memories faded, today I visited a place where memories of him are still alive. An entire museum dedicated to Carolina basketball, and you just have to believe Dean Smith had a whole lot to do with it. So you think about the moments on the court for Dean Smith. A lot of those date back to 1982, the first national championship he won, of course, with a little help from James Worthy, Sam Perkins, and Michael Jordan, and that remarkable shot near the end of the game versus Georgetown. 11 years later, the moment was marked by Chris Webber and that timeout that didn't exist, and the championship with Eric Montross and his bunch, 1993. And it doesn't even end there. In this museum, you get a little bit of everything. You even get a chance to see the rings that were awarded to the players and Coach Smith. These on the left you see were for the first championship, and that one to the right is for the 1993 win. You think about the championships, but of course, before the championships are the Final Fours, and there are a few more Final Fours than there were championships, and then so many more ACC championships than Final Four championships. So many things have been said, so many words have been given. A legend gone, but we will never forget.
Few people spent more time with Dean Smith than the voice of the Tar Heels and former WFMY News 2 sports director, Woody Durham.
And Woody told me today it's been the toughest loss that he's endured with Coach Smith.
The last day I saw him, he didn't know who I was. I said, you know, I want to remember Coach like he was, so I don't think I'm going to see him anymore. And I told his wife that, and she understood. You know, I would have gone back to see him if I had known I could do something to help him. I mean, that was trying to survive that disease, but he couldn't. And the thing that bothered me most about it was the fact that I've never been around anybody at any level, in any sport, in any business, that had the memory he did. And to watch that just evaporate as that disease got hold of him was, wasn't happy to see that.
What are you going to miss the most?
The off season, that'll be the time it'll be the hardest to go through. And I'll hate that, not having him around.
From the 60s to today, generations of basketball players looked up to Coach Smith like a father. And today, some of his players are still passing on his lessons to younger players. Bill Chambers is the head coach of the boys basketball team at Northern Guilford High School. He played basketball for UNC under Dean Smith in the early 1970s. Chambers also said he was a father figure to him.
As I've lived my life, I've always thought about, well, what would Coach Smith do in this situation? And I've tried to make a decision based on what I thought he would say and the decision he would make, and just always wanted to do what I could to make Coach Smith proud.
Dean Smith won 2 national championships at UNC. He retired as the winningest coach in all of college basketball.
And UNC at Chapel Hill does plan indeed to celebrate Coach Smith's life at a public memorial. This is on next Sunday, February 22nd. The public, fans, anyone who cared about Coach Smith, yes, you're invited at 2 p.m. at the Dean Smith Center.
You can also read more about his life and legacy on WFMYnews2.com.
All right, by now you've probably already heard we've got an Arctic blast headed our way, not till Friday, but it's not the only Arctic blast. Arctic blast number 2 headed our way by Sunday, some of the coldest air that we've seen in a while. We'll have the full forecast and let you know just how cold we get in just a little bit.
We all need a hug sometimes.
But not everyone has someone to hold. How a new trend has arrived in North Carolina where you can pay a stranger to cuddle.